I am an alum of the so-called Craigslist Journalism School. When I went there, it was called the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism. And I have a lot of beef with how that school is managed and run. Before I set foot in that school, give it any kind of attention, support, donations, what have you, I vote for the immediate dismissal of Dean Sarah Bartlett. I think she's completely incompetent. I think she's driven that school into the ground. I think the people she chooses as minority ambassadors of the school are the worst representatives that the school has ever seen. They do nothing to encourage other people of color to want to attend the school. And the whole point of founding the school in the first place was to encourage more diverse journalists, young journalists, journalists of any age really, to attend a publicly funded journalism school. And the people that Dean Sarah Bartlett seems to think are great ambassadors to that, to great ambassadors to the school, I just have some severe issues with. More to the point, I think the school just needs to be completely overhauled. Out there in the real world, mind you, I was the class valedictorian. I was selected as class speaker for my commencement address, for the commencement address of the class of 2011, which was December 14th, 2011. I was selected as class speaker. Yes, I'm a native French speaker, and I was selected as class speaker of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism. I also won a Dean's Award that following spring and was given that award by then Mayor Michael Bloomberg for Best Student Journalist of that class. So I feel like I have a lot of, concerns about how the school is being run and how it can improve. So here goes. Do away with the shitty subject concentrations. Like, they really don't do anybody any good. I mean, when you're out there in the real world of journalism, mind you, journalism school is like a luxurious summer camp for people who want to learn about journalism. You don't necessarily need journalism school, but if you're willing and able and want to, it's not a terrible idea. I felt like it propelled me into a career that I really enjoy, but there are other ways to, let's say, skin a cat if you really want to be a journalist. If you're choosing to go the journalism school route, and this is graduate journalism school, mind you, not undergraduate, but graduate journalism school, and you're out there with a CUNY J School degree with a subject concentration competing against people who, let's say, in the international reporting concentration, which is what I did. 3 semesters of specialized classes on international relations is not going to cut it when you're competing against people who've gone to the Baruch School of International Affairs, the Robert Wagner School of International Affairs at NYU, and a host of other international schools around the world. 3 measly classes is not really going to cut it and make you competitive to be able to report about international issues if you have no international experience to speak of. In my case, that wasn't quite the case because I was born in France. I speak 2 languages. I hold 2 passports. I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. I've lived on 3 continents. Like, international reporting felt really right to me. So I'm not necessarily somebody who's just from somewhere in like New Jersey who doesn't have a passport and expects to be an international correspondent by doing the international concentration at CUNY. That's not my profile at all. But there are a lot of people who seem to think that they'll be international correspondents by virtue of not having a passport, never leaving the US, and just thinking, hey, it's really freaking cool. You need a little bit more than that to be an international correspondent. And mind you, you're competing against people who have graduate degrees in international relations, international affairs. You're competing against also urban people who do the urban concentration, people who have law degrees, who've done work with HUD, who've done, legal work with like the Legal Aid Society, who know urban issues backwards and forwards. So 3 measly classes that you take in the urban concentration really won't make you that much more competitive than people who've gone to law school who happen to also want to be journalists. Those are the people you're competing against. Science and tech people, I mean, plenty of people, have experience in Silicon Valley, take that knowledge with them, work in Google. They have a health experience. Maybe they have a particular health background, they have medical degrees, they have public health degrees, and they're also really great writers. And hey, guess what? That makes them a better health and science journalist than anybody who's gone through the health, science, and tech concentration at the Craigslist J School. You could say that about even arts and culture. Like, I could have easily been in arts and culture, done arts and culture as my concentration at CUNY, because I have a huge background in the arts, generations that goes back generations in my family. I come from a multi-generational family of artists in France and in the US, not to mention my own previous career in the arts industry between New York and Paris. So I could have easily been in arts and culture, done the arts and culture concentration at CUNY if I really wanted to. But you know what? I was just like, I'd rather do something a little bit more serious, so that if anybody asked me about, let's say, the Iran nuclear deal, I wouldn't look like a fucking deer in headlights when that subject would come up. I actually wrote that in my essay, that I wanted to be taken seriously as an international journalist and wanted to have meaningful things to say about things like the Iran nuclear deal. So yeah, abolish all the subject concentrations. They're complete bullshit in the real world. Instead, I propose first semester, investigative journalism for everyone. Just learn basic skills of investigative journalism. Second semester, political journalism. Learn basic skills of political journalism, how to follow a candidate, what to do, in different types of elections, what it means on election night, how to read the polls, how do you know who's ahead, when to announce the winner, all of the mechanics that go into elections on every single possible level, from municipal, from school board onto the presidential election, and I don't know, something. Maybe even on an international scale, learn about how, ranked choice voting works in Ireland. Learn about the election system and universal suffrage in France. Like, political journalism, have at it in the second semester. Third semester, business journalism for everybody. None of this, the business journalists are the only ones making bank, the only ones getting jobs. If that's the case, they need to give that kind of education to everyone. Sure, you can still do the whole progressive, everybody learns multimedia skills throughout those 3 semesters, but basic journalism skills that people recognize across the journalism field, because the subject concentrations don't amount to a hill of beans. Like I mentioned, when you're dealing with people who have real life skills in those areas, who are real life experts, some Joe Schmo with a journalism degree doesn't really freaking matter much. You need to understand political science, you need to understand the basics of, world politics. Everybody should be going to the UN to understand how to report on the UN, not just international people. Everybody should go down to City Hall to understand how things get passed in New York City. Everybody should meet the mayor. Everybody should meet their city council person. Everybody should cover UNGA. That shouldn't be isolated to just a few select students. Everybody should understand how to use the Bloomberg terminals. Everybody should understand how to FOIA, the government over, I don't know, George Bush's tax returns, or however that happens. Like, that should just be basic common knowledge of every graduate of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism. And while we're at it, I'd say go back to the original name of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, because I hate being associated with Craigslist, which is basically like a shitty promotion of sexual predators online. I hate the schools associated with that. With Craig Newmark and Craigslist. That's essentially what Craigslist is really used for, is like sexual predators who are trying to kind of prostitute young girls around the country. That's all it's good for these days. It's pathetic. Do away with Sarah Bartlett, overhaul the entire subject concentration thing so that everybody just goes in there with basic journalism skills, still teach the multimedia aspect of things, still make sure everybody knows how to, use a camera, report for radio, report for video and report for text, and sure, photo, why not? But none of this precious, oh, I'm an international person, I don't do this. I say no one goes on an internship overseas. I say cut that shit out. How many people have been lost overseas on those things that like makes the liability insurance of that school go through the roof? They probably don't want to tell you that, but I'm sure that happens more than they care to admit. What else? I would say upon graduation, 6 months after you graduate, if you don't have a full-time job in journalism, after having attended a taxpayer-funded graduate school in journalism, I don't know, make it become like a serious issue. Like, have there be consequences if you're just going there thinking you're going to be a freelancer for the rest of your life. Like, there's plenty of jobs that you can do in journalism around the country that are full-time, staff-paying jobs, start your own paper, you know, I don't know, but just make it so that your end goal is not to go to journalism school to just be a freelance journalist. That's fucking bullshit. Freelance journalists don't make rent, especially not in New York City. So have some kind of stipulation that within 6 months you have to have an actual journalism job. And make it the school's business to make sure everybody has an actual journalism job. Not just a couple of clips here and there for like, I don't know, the New York Post. Like, make it their job so that it's not just about getting an internship, but an actual bills paying, mortgage paying, healthcare, healthcare paying job. And see how much better results, see how much better the results are once you make those kind of stipulations. It is a taxpayer-funded institution. They should demand more, not less, of alums of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism.